I used to pour my heart onto paper for Jessica. Those handwritten love letters became my way of expressing what sometimes felt too overwhelming to say out loud. For 8 months, I believed I had found someone who appreciated this vulnerable part of me. Then came that Saturday afternoon when I overheard her reading my most intimate thoughts aloud to her friends, their laughter cutting through me like glass. Everything changed in that moment. Tracing the letters I had written with such care only to have them mocked behind my back. Before I share this heartbreaking story with you all, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss real stories about love and betrayal. I met Jessica at a local art gallery downtown during the first Friday art walk last spring. She stood in front of an abstract painting head, slightly tilted, completely absorbed in whatever meaning she was extracting from the chaotic brushstrokes. Something about her concentration drew me in immediately. She had this infectious laugh that would start quiet, then build until her whole body shook with it. Her dark hair fell just past her shoulders, and she had these expressive brown eyes that seemed to light up whenever she talked about something she loved. "What do you see in it?" I asked, nodding toward the painting. She turned surprised but not annoyed by the interruption. "Conflict," she answered, without hesitation. "But the beautiful kind. The type that creates something new." That short exchange sparked a 3-hour conversation that moved from the gallery to a nearby coffee shop. Jessica worked in publishing as an editor, which instantly created common ground since I had always been passionate about writing. She was smart, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts on everything from classic literature to modern art. By the end of that night, I felt that rare sense of having found someone who just fit. Our relationship developed naturally over the next 8 months. We explored the city together, finding tiny indie movie theaters that played classic films, walking along the beach at sunset, talking about our dreams, and cooking elaborate meals in my small apartment kitchen. Jessica would sit on the counter, glass of wine in hand, asking me about my day while I chopped vegetables. Those simple moments felt perfect. I shared my passion for writing with her early on. I had been working on short stories since college, but never had the courage to submit them anywhere. Jessica seemed supportive, offering to read my work and providing thoughtful feedback. She made me feel like my writing mattered. About 3 months into our relationship, Jessica introduced me to her close friends at a dinner party at her apartment. There was Taylor, her college roommate, with a sharp wit and even sharper tongue; James, an old high school friend who worked in finance; Amanda, her coworker from the publishing house; and Kyle, who seemed to know everyone somehow. They welcomed me warmly enough, though I noticed how they all seemed to share inside jokes and communicate through meaningful glances. Jessica clearly valued their opinions, and I wanted them to like me. For our 3-month anniversary, I wrote Jessica my first love letter. Writing has always been my way of processing emotions, of saying things that stick in my throat during face-to-face conversations. I poured my feelings onto the page, describing how she had brightened my life, and the future I was beginning to imagine with her. It was raw, honest, and completely from the heart. When I gave it to her, folded in a simple envelope with her name written on the front, Jessica seemed genuinely touched. She read it while sitting across from me at dinner, her eyes growing misty. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "This is beautiful, Cliff," she said. "No one has ever written me anything like this before." Encouraged by her reaction, I continued writing to her. Sometimes for special occasions, sometimes just because I wanted to tell her how much she meant to me. Each letter was personal, filled with specific memories we had shared, or things about her that made me fall deeper in love. Jessica kept them all in a small wooden box on her dresser, which made me believe she treasured them. Looking back, I should have noticed the small warning signs. Occasionally, Jessica would make jokes about my old-school romanticism when we were with her friends. "Cliff is such a traditionalist," she would say, with a little laugh. "He still writes actual letters on paper." I took it as harmless teasing, and even felt a bit proud that she found this quality endearing. There were other subtle hints, too. Sometimes when we were with her friends, they would exchange quick glances when I said something earnest or showed affection toward Jessica. Once I heard Taylor whisper something to Amanda that made them both suppress giggles while looking in my direction. But I trusted Jessica completely, so I dismissed these moments as my own insecurity. Everything changed on a Saturday in late fall. Jessica and I had dinner reservations at a new restaurant downtown that evening, but I finished my errands earlier than expected and decided to surprise her by showing up at her apartment about an hour before I was supposed to pick her up. Her roommate Lisa let me in, mentioning that Jessica had some friends over but that I could wait in the living room. The apartment was decorated with streamers and balloons for her upcoming birthday celebration the following weekend. I settled on the couch, planning to check some emails, until Jessica was ready to go. That is when I heard the laughter coming from her bedroom down the hall. The door was partially open, and I could make out Jessica's voice, along with what sounded like Taylor and Amanda, plus a couple of other female voices I did not recognize. They were having a good time, their conversation punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter and excited chatter. I was about to call out and let Jessica know I had arrived early when I heard my name. Curiosity kept me silent, listening. "Read the summer solstice. One again," someone said, followed by sounds of paper rustling. "Oh my God, this one is even better," Jessica replied, her voice carrying clearly down the hallway. I recognized what they were discussing immediately. The summer solstice letter was one I had written after we spent the longest day of the year at the beach, watching the sunset and talking about our future together. "My dearest Jessica," she began reading, in an exaggerated theatrical voice that sounded nothing like me. "As the longest day of the year draws to a close, I find myself wishing for more time with you. The sun may set, but my love for you burns eternal, a flame that grows brighter with each moment we share." The room erupted in laughter. "Can you believe guys still write stuff like this?" one of the unfamiliar voices asked between giggles. "It is so over the top," Taylor added. "Eternal flame. Seriously. To be fair," Jessica said, her voice still tinged with amusement, "he is sweet. Just a little intense sometimes." "Read the part about your eyes again," Amanda requested. "That one killed me." As Jessica continued reading the most intimate thoughts I had shared with her, my entire body went cold. Every word I had carefully chosen, every emotion I had trusted her with, was now entertainment for her and her friends. The letters I had poured my heart into, that I believed she cherished, were nothing but material for ridicule. I stood frozen in the living room, unable to move or even process what I was hearing. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, like having the wind knocked out of me. But beneath the hurt was something worse: humiliation. The most vulnerable parts of myself, the words that had felt so right and true when I wrote them now, sounded ridiculous, echoed back in Jessica's mocking tone. More than anything, I felt betrayed. These were not just words on paper. They were pieces of my heart I had entrusted to her, believing they would be kept safe. Instead, she had turned them into a joke, shared without my knowledge or consent with people who had no right to them. I must have made some noise, or perhaps Lisa warned her, because suddenly the laughter stopped. I heard hurried whispers and then footsteps. I was already heading for the door when Jessica appeared in the hallway, her expression shifting from lingering amusement to shock when she saw me. "Cliff, I did not know you were here already." Her voice was unnaturally high, her eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. I could barely look at her. "I heard everything," was all I could manage to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Her face flushed crimson. Behind her, I could see Taylor and Amanda peering out from her bedroom, their expressions a mixture of embarrassment and something that looked disturbingly like pity. "We were just having some fun," Jessica said quickly. "Friends tease each other about this stuff all the time. It does not mean anything, but it meant everything to me." I shook my head, unable to find words that could possibly convey the depth of my hurt. Without another word, I turned and walked out, ignoring Jessica calling my name behind me. For the next 3 days, I went completely dark. I turned off my phone, called in sick to work, and holed up in my apartment, replaying everything in my mind. Jessica blew up my phone with messages and voicemails, each one increasingly desperate. "Please call me back, Cliff. We need to talk about this. It was stupid and thoughtless. I am so sorry. You are completely overreacting. It was just girl talk. Please, Cliff. I miss you. I love you. What we have is real." I could not bring myself to respond to any of them. Every time I thought about picking up the phone, I would hear her voice reading my words in that mocking tone, followed by the laughter of her friends, and the pain would hit me all over again. On the third day, my best friend David came over with pizza and beer after I finally answered one of his calls. David and I had been friends since high school, and he was the only person I felt I could talk to about what had happened. "She read your private letters to her friends?" David asked, looking genuinely appalled after I explained the situation. "And they all laughed about it?" I nodded, taking a long drink of beer. "Like they were reading bad poetry at an open mic night?" David shook his head. That is messed up, man. Those were personal. Between you and her, I feel like such an idiot, I admitted, thinking she actually appreciated them, that she understood what they meant to me. You are not an idiot, David said firmly. You were being genuine. That is never something to be ashamed of. He went on to tell me about a similar situation he had experienced in college when an ex shared his private text messages with her sorority sisters. It took me a long time to open up to someone again after that, he said. But eventually, I realized that her betrayal was about her character, not about anything I had done wrong. His perspective helped me see things more clearly. This was not about my letters being too sentimental or poorly written. It was about Jessica violating my trust in one of the most fundamental ways possible. After David left, I finally texted Jessica back. We need to talk. Coffee shop on 5th, tomorrow at noon. The next day I arrived early and chose a table in the corner far from other customers. When Jessica walked in, she looked terrible. Her eyes were red and puffy, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She spotted me immediately and hurried over, sliding into the seat across from me. Thank you for meeting me, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I have been so worried about you. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. What you heard, she began, her eyes fixed on the table between us. It was not what it seemed like. We were just having girl time, and Taylor asked about your letters. I should not have read them aloud, but I was not making fun of you. Not really. Not really, I repeated, keeping my voice low but unable to hide the anger. I heard you, Jessica. I heard how you read them, the tone you used. I heard your friends laughing. Tears welled in her eyes. I know it sounded bad, but you have to understand the pressure I feel sometimes. My friends can be judgmental, and I just wanted them to see that our relationship was normal, not too intense or serious. So you thought humiliating me behind my back was the solution. The hurt in my voice was palpable. No, that is not what I was trying to do, she insisted. I care about you so much, Cliff. Those letters mean the world to me. I keep them all. I reread them when I miss you. While practicing your dramatic reading skills, the bitterness surprised even me. Jessica reached across the table for my hand, but I pulled away. Please, she begged, tears now streaming down her face. It was one stupid mistake. I promise I will never do anything like that again. I will tell my friends how special those letters are. How special you are. Looking at her crying across from me, I realized something important. I still had feelings for Jessica. 8 months of building a relationship does not just disappear overnight. But something else had become crystal clear to me. We had fundamentally different values about what respect in a relationship meant. If I stayed with Jessica, I would always wonder what she said about me to her friends when I was not around. I would second-guess every private moment we shared, wondering if it would become fodder for her next girls' night. Worst of all, I would start censoring myself, hiding the parts of me that were most authentic out of fear they would be mocked. I cannot do this anymore, I said quietly but firmly. Jessica froze her tears, stopping abruptly in shock. What do you mean? We are done, Jessica. I cannot be with someone who would take the most vulnerable parts of me and turn them into entertainment. You cannot be serious, she whispered, her voice cracking. You are ending our relationship over one mistake. That is not fair. This is not about fairness, I explained, surprised by my own calmness. This is about trust. Once it is broken, everything else falls apart. But I love you, she insisted, reaching for my hand again. We can fix this. I will prove to you that you can trust me again. I stood up, gathering my jacket. I'm sorry, Jessica. I really am. But I need to respect myself enough to walk away from someone who did not respect me. She stared up at me in disbelief. You are overreacting. It was just some stupid letters. That was the moment I knew for certain I was making the right decision. They were never just some stupid letters to me. They were pieces of my heart. Goodbye, Jessica, I said, and walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. The fallout was immediate and intense. Jessica called and texted nonstop for the next few days, alternating between desperate apologies and angry accusations that I was being unreasonable. No one breaks up over something this trivial, she wrote in one particularly heated message. You are looking for an excuse to end things. Her friends got involved too. Taylor sent me a surprisingly thoughtful message, acknowledging their part in what happened and apologizing for hurting me. Amanda, on the other hand, called me overly sensitive and suggested I man up and forgive Jessica. Several mutual acquaintances reached out, most of them suggesting I was overreacting to what they called harmless girl talk. Through it all, I held firm to my decision. This was not about being stubborn or punishing Jessica. It was about recognizing that some betrayals reveal fundamental incompatibilities that cannot be overcome. No matter how many times Jessica apologized, I knew I could never be completely myself with her again. The first few weeks after our breakup were the hardest. Despite my certainty that ending the relationship was the right choice, I still felt the loss acutely. There were moments when I questioned my decision, wondering if I had thrown away something good because of one bad incident. I threw myself into work during the day, but evenings were difficult. I missed our routines, our inside jokes, even the sound of her key in my door. Several times I found myself reaching for my phone to text her about something that had happened during my day, only to remember we were no longer speaking. Surprisingly, it was writing that helped me begin to heal. Not love letters this time, but honest reflections about what had happened and how it had affected me. I started keeping a journal, pouring out my thoughts without worrying about how they would sound to anyone else. There was something liberating about writing just for myself again. About a month after the breakup, David convinced me to join a local writing group that met weekly at the bookstore downtown. "You need to get out of your apartment," he insisted, "and you might meet people who actually appreciate your writing." Reluctantly, I agreed. That first meeting was awkward. I sat in the back saying little, just listening to others share their work. But by the third meeting, I felt comfortable enough to read a short piece I had written about trust and vulnerability. The positive feedback from the group was unexpected and encouraging. Through the writing group, I started developing a small blog where I shared essays about personal growth and relationships. Nothing specifically about Jessica, but reflections on the broader lessons I had learned. To my surprise, people responded. Comments came in from readers who had experienced similar betrayals and found comfort in knowing they were not alone. Meanwhile, Jessica continued her campaign to win me back. The frequency of her messages decreased, but their intensity did not. 2 weeks after our coffee shop conversation, a package arrived at my apartment. Inside was a small journal filled with her own handwritten letters to me, one for each month. We had been together, plus several for the future she still hoped we would have. "I wanted to show you that your words matter to me," she wrote in the accompanying note, "that I understand how special it is to share your heart with someone. Please give me another chance to be worthy of your trust." I appreciated the gesture, but it did not change my mind. A week later, flowers arrived at my office. Then a box of my favorite books. Each gift came with a note expressing regret and asking for another chance. My colleagues thought it was romantic. "She is really trying," my office mate, Steve, commented after the third delivery. "Maybe you should hear her out." But I knew what they could not, that the damage had been done on a level that no grand gesture could repair. It was not about the gifts or apologies. It was about knowing that in a moment when she thought I would never find out, Jessica had chosen to betray my trust for the approval of her friends. The situation came to a head 2 months after our breakup. I was coming home from a writing group meeting when I spotted Jessica sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. She jumped up when she saw me, her expression a mixture of determination and desperation. "I know you said not to come," she started before I could even speak. "But you have been ignoring my calls and messages. I need to talk to you face to face." She looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes. Despite everything, seeing her in distress still affected me. "Jessica, this is not a good idea," I said gently but firmly. "Please, Cliff," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "I made one terrible mistake. I have apologized 1,000 ways. I have given you space. What more can I do to prove that I love you? And I am sorry." I took a deep breath, realizing that I had been avoiding this final conversation out of kindness, but perhaps that had been unfair to both of us. She needed closure as much as I did. "Can we sit?" I asked, gesturing to the steps. She nodded eagerly, clearly taking this as a positive sign. "Jessica," I began carefully, "I believe that you are sorry. I even believe that you would never do something like that again. But what happened showed me something fundamental about us that I cannot unsee." "What do you mean?" she asked, wiping at her tears. "We value different things," I explained. "The way you treated something deeply personal to me revealed that. It is not about punishment or making you earn forgiveness. It is about recognizing that I need to be with someone who instinctively understands why what happened was so hurtful, not someone I have to explain it to. But I do understand now, she insisted. I've had months to think about it to realize how wrong I was. I shook my head. Understanding after the fact is not the same. I need someone who would never have done it in the first place. Jessica stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the moment when she finally accepted the truth. Her shoulders slumped, and fresh tears fell. "So this is really it," she whispered. "No more chances, I think. We both deserve relationships where trust comes naturally," I said as gently as I could. "Where neither of us has to worry about being embarrassed or ridiculed behind our backs." She nodded slowly, finally seeming to understand. "I really did love you, Cliff." "I know," I said. "I loved you too. That is what made this so hard." I walked her to her car, and we said our final goodbyes. As I watched her drive away, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time since that day at her apartment, I felt certain I had made the right choice for both of us. After that night, Jessica finally stopped reaching out. Through mutual friends, I heard she had started seeing a therapist and was focusing on her career. I was genuinely glad for her and hoped she would find happiness. 6 months after our breakup at a poetry reading organized by my writing group, I met Sarah. She was there to support her brother, one of the featured poets. We started talking during the reception afterward, and I was immediately struck by her warmth and genuine interest in the people around her. Sarah was different from Jessica, in many ways. She was quieter, more thoughtful, with a subtle sense of humor that revealed itself gradually as I got to know her. She taught art at a local elementary school and wrote children's stories in her spare time. Our relationship developed slowly. I was cautious after my experience with Jessica, careful about how much of myself I revealed. But when I finally told Sarah about my habit of writing letters, her response surprised me. "That sounds beautiful," she said simply. "What a thoughtful way to show someone how you feel." A few weeks later, for no special occasion, she gave me a small leather journal. "For your letters," she explained. "Whether they are for me or just for yourself." 3 months into dating Sarah, I finally wrote her a letter. It was not as flowery or dramatic as those I had written to Jessica, but it was honest and heartfelt. I wrote about how her kindness had restored my faith in relationships, how her respect for others showed in everything she did, and how grateful I was that our paths had crossed. When I gave it to her, Sarah read it privately. Later that evening, she took my hand and simply said, "Thank you for trusting me with your words." There was no mockery, no discomfort with emotional vulnerability, just sincere appreciation. That moment confirmed what I had been learning over the past year, that walking away from Jessica had not been about punishing her or holding a grudge. It had been about making space in my life for someone who could truly value what I had to offer. The experience taught me that self-respect is not selfish. Setting boundaries is not cruel. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for someone else, is to recognize when a relationship cannot give either of you what you need. I still write letters. Some I share with Sarah, some I keep just for myself. But I no longer worry about whether my emotional openness makes me less of a man or more of a target. I have learned that the right people will treasure your vulnerability, not use it against you. And I have learned something else, too, that true love is not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It is about daily respect, about treating with care the pieces of themselves that others entrust to you, especially when they are not watching. It is about creating a safe space where both people can be fully themselves, without fear of judgment or ridicule. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship where your trust was betrayed? How did you know when it was time to set that boundary? Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more real life stories about relationships, personal growth, and the courage it takes to value yourself. Thank you for listening, and remember, the right person will never make you feel wrong for being exactly who you are.